Hello class, this is lesson 8-2 about the slope of a line. When we're talking about slope, you might think of this in real life. It's typically the steepness or the slant or the incline of a line, or you might be thinking about the road, or here it might be like a mountain and you might be walking up a mountain and it's really gradual, and then you might be going down a mountain, or you might fall off the cliff and the slope would be drastic if you were falling off, right? So there are two ways today that we are going to learn that you can find the slope. One is by looking at a picture of a line and simply comparing what we call the rise, which is the vertical change. So how much the line is changing vertically from one point to another, compared to the run. And the run, we're talking about the horizontal change. Okay, so how far from one point to another it is going horizontally. So that's one way that you can find slope, just by counting on a graph. Another way is by using what we call is the slope formula. Okay, and it's represented by the variable m, and it is equal to, on top, subtracting the y values of 2 points on your line. So I'm going to call it y2 minus y1. And then on the bottom, we're going to be subtracting the x values. So x2 minus x1. And this is what we call our slope formula. So again, this is the rise on top, which is the y values, and the run on the bottom, which are the x values. All right, so let's just start by looking at some pictures of lines and determining the slope just by counting how many steps it takes to get from one point to the next point. So for instance, if I'm starting at the lower point, I'm going to go up 3 steps. That's the rise. And then I'm going to go to the right 2 more steps, and that's the run. So again, to write the slope, I'm going to write it as the rise over the run, which would be the fraction 3 over 2. So that just means that my slope is 3/2. All right, let's do the same for our next one, but this time it looks like to go from one point to the next, I'm going down 2, so that's -2. And then I'm going to the right 2. So my slope, if I'm writing it as rise over run, I would write it as -2 for the rise over +2 for the run, and -2 over +2 is -1. So my slope would be -1 for this line. So in general, there are different lines that you might be given. Our first line would be going upward. And so this is like, you can envision a person walking up this mountain or up this hill, and this would have a positive slope when it is going upward. So if you look at your final answer for slope, it should be a positive number. Now, if you have a slope that's going downward, you can picture the person maybe like sliding down this line. I don't know. I'll try to draw that for you. He's like, wee, I'm sliding down. All right, this would have a negative slope. All right, so if you have a line that is pointing downward, your answer should have a negative slope. Another type of line that we might have, though, is a flat line, just a horizontal line like the regular ground that you walk on, and there's no slope to it, right? It's just flat. It's really easy to walk on. And so we would say that this has 0 slope. And so mathematically, if we were comparing our rise over our run, it might be the number 0 over some number. It really doesn't matter what the number is, because that's going to simplify to the number 0. But you may also have a vertical line. And if that's the case, this is like the person like falling off the cliff. You know, they can't stand on it. There's no way to define the slope, and so we call it undefined. Okay? And this mathematically would look like if you had some number divided by the number 0. If you put that into your calculator, it would tell you error. Okay, so again, this is going to be undefined if it's a vertical line. So to wrap up, we're going to find the slope of the line passing through a variety of points. Okay, so I'm going to label my first point the x1 and the y1, and then the x2 and the y2, and I can use my slope formula without having a picture to help me find the slope of the line. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to subtract the y's first. So I'm going to do 7 minus 2 over 4 minus 1. 7 minus 2 is 5, 4 minus 1 is 3, and that's my slope, 5/3. It cannot be simplified. All right, let's do this again. Let's subtract our y's, so 1 minus 5, and then subtract our x's, 6 minus negative 2. That simplifies to negative 4 over positive 8, which equals negative 1/2. All right, let's go ahead and find our next slope. So I'm going to subtract the y values. So that's going to be negative 9 minus 0 over subtracting the x values, which is 3 minus 0. So that's negative 9 over positive 3, which simplifies to negative 3 for the slope. All right, let's move on. Let's subtract our y values again. So 8 minus 8, and then over the x value, so 7 minus 5, which leaves me with 0 over 2, which simplifies to 0. So you can imagine this would be a flat horizontal line. Finally, let's subtract the y values one more time, so negative 3 minus 4 over subtracting the y values, so negative 2 minus negative 2. This simplifies to negative 7 over 0. Since 0 is on the bottom, this is undefined. And that's it. So I hope that this lesson on slope made sense to all of you, but please let me know if you have any questions when you come into class.